welcome to this week's episode of our Shotmaker podcast. What we wanted to dig in a little bit was the idea of cash flow issues. Now, we know in business this happens. I think as entrepreneurs, there are times when we think our cash flow is better than it ends up being. We're a little stressed, overwhelmed. Well, the good news is that entrepreneurs aren't alone in that, right? This happens in the sports world too. So we thought by looking at some of the sports examples, it might help us see, that this happens and you get through it, but also learn from some of those mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the first one that Chris came up with was...
Well, this is the one that I forget about all the other ones because they didn't happen in our city.
Yeah.
This was our city. I'm 16, 17 years old. Eagles were everything to me.
Me and him were much younger. I don't think we remember it.
You probably don't remember it, but I do. I was a teenager. You guys will probably start having baby food at that time. So I just remember the reports that this is going to happen. Then there are the reports it's not happening.
Okay.
Right? So we all can breathe like the Eagles are staying.
Okay.
Then we wake up one morning and there's all these reports that the big tractor trailers were outside the vet, ready to pack them up and move them to Phoenix.
Wow.
All right, so Leonard Toes was going to do this behind everybody's back and just move the team. So giving them a lot of money. Now, for those of you who don't know Leonard Toes, you must have never been in Atlantic City because that's where all his money went. And that's why he had a cash flow problem. And that's why he was selling the team. But at the last minute, Norman Brayman rides in, saves the day, buys the team. The Eagles stay. But not everyone has that lucky story, right? They had a move.
Yeah.
There are quite a few other teams that had those cash flow problems. And you think about it, you don't think a major football team would have that issue.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's gonna be watching the money. Like, I know he was the owner, but who's the controller?
Right.
Like, who's watching the money? Like, that you went bankrupt, you had no cash flow. It's hard to believe.
Well, and I think, probably not different from some entrepreneurs, as it gets worse, one of the, common things that everyone does is avoid it, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, if you're to the point where you're making this decision in the dead of night, then you probably avoided cash flow for a long time.
For quite a while.
And didn't want to set a target, didn't want to plan for it, didn't want to be realistic.
Yep.
And I think that's how cash flow problems happen, is not overnight. I mean, sometimes the, dire part is overnight, but really if we're honest, the best way to make sure that you don't have a cash flow issue is as simple as checking your cash balance every day, which is something we talk a lot about at the Lawyer Group, but also something that I think you can learn from in sports, that these guys aren't immune to, I know things are bad, but I'm going to go to Atlantic City and avoid the bad and think it'll get better, and then realize it's not getting better because I'm not being aware of it and I'm not changing it.
It's making bad worse.
Right.
That's what you're doing. Right.
So the burying your head in the sand does not work. All right, so our second one, which again is one I remember because when I was in high school, I transferred to Florida, so the Marlins, started off as a great new franchise. It was really exciting. They were going to be great. They built a winning team, and then they sold the winning team, which is like, I had never seen that before, that you just sell everyone.
No, I never have. I mean,
I think what they saw is that the product on the field, whether it was because of performance or not, people weren't coming out.
Yeah.
And I think that was what they saw. They tried changing some different things, and how to do that, but they really weren't able to increase, in that theory, customers.
Yeah.
Sales. Increase sales.
Yeah.
And they were a great product. I mean, they were a World Series champ. I mean, they were a great product. They had some of the, they were always trading off the best player because they couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
Which was, it's sad, really.
Yeah.
But there was a serious cash flow problem there that they just couldn't figure out.
Well, and like you said, I think this speaks to knowing your customer at the beginning. I mean, I think if anyone who would really take the time to look at South Florida, especially in an outdoor stadium when it's 100 degrees, Florida's busiest in the winter, baseball's in the summer. I mean, there's some key things here that may not have been thought through. As much as you want to think, South Florida, a huge Latin community, they'll come out. I mean, again, their busiest season is the winter. So why we have a baseball team, and I think most Florida residents would have said, we know people aren't going to go to those games. It's hot, they're not huge.
And this is right before a game, right?
Right. I mean,
you see them getting ready?
The three people in the stands. And, I think that speaks to, whoever wanted the baseball team wanted it for them, right? And I think a lot of times when you look at things that don't work, you're not listening to your customers. You're not really seeing what do they want, because again, just between the heat and the fact that the population goes to half makes this a hard uphill battle, even if you had a good organization,
which they did.
Which they did.
They were a winning franchise. For being a team that just popped onto the scene.
Sure.
They were a winning franchise.
Well, I think they looked at Miami being a very high populated area, like Gannon said, some leave part of the year, but a lot of people that are in Miami are from different areas, so they don't have they already have their team. They're a New York Yankee fan, or they're a Philadelphia Philly fan. So, are you going? How many nights of the year are you going to see a team that you don't really root for at a ballpark? And I think that kind of goes right with a restaurant, right? Yeah. You could go into a busy area, you could go into an up and coming area, but if you're not selling a product that those people in that area want, it really doesn't matter how busy the area is.
Right. You can't just use statistics or analytics. Like, you have to make sure that your customer understands what you're selling and make sure that they buy in. And I think that's the biggest takeaway with the Marlins is people just didn't buy in.
Unfortunately for them.
All right, so the next one.
Oh, do remember this one.
I don't think we were. I
think you guys were too young again.
What's the year of that?
I know, Chris, help us on
Yeah,
this.
you guys were too young for this one too. And the Browns are one of the first teams in NFL. Right. They were the part of the original package that there was, and they just could not get fans out. Like, there was a serious cash flow problem. The product wasn't good. And that's the big thing with this. Like, some of the other teams, the product was good. Yeah. They had other issues. This was the product. This is a bad product that nobody cared about. The owner stopped caring.
Yeah.
So that's when the big solution was to move it.
Yeah.
And they did, and they actually got better.
Yeah.
Right. But while they were there in Cleveland, it was just not good. I don't know. Maybe Cleveland's just not the town for football anymore, because now they have another team there that they really can't get them together. Yeah. They just, I don't know why. They have fans that come out. They got the dog pound there, right? The guys are going crazy. They got dog mask on. But they just, they're not creating cash flow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the big issue.
Yeah. And that's, I think, again, about, fundamentally, if it feels like there's something not working, we can't avoid it. We really need to look at, okay, how do I turn the tide to make sure that I'm cash flow positive every week? And, in a restaurant, same thing. If it feels like people just aren't coming, maybe they perceive my product to not be great, whether or not it is, or not. But what could I do this week to change that narrative? And I think with social media, the best thing is you have a phone on all the time, right? With video, how could you rebrand yourself into something that does work, that is a good product that people want?
You gotta know your area. You gotta know what they want.
Yeah.
You gotta give them what they want. We talk about it all the time. Pivot. Don't be afraid to change.
Yeah.
Right? You're not locked in anything.
Yeah.
If we pivot from this to this and this doesn't work, okay, we'll pivot again. You can pivot 1,900 times, doesn't matter.
Until you're dizzy.
That's it, yeah. Find what works.
Right.
And when you find what works, stay with it, but build around it. Don't just think, okay, this is great, it's going to last forever, because it's not.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you start running the problems. Like, I don't understand, why isn't this working? It worked for 2 years. Well, times change. Right?
Yeah.
So that's great, find what works, but keep building around it.
And you always have to evolve. Whether you're successful or not successful, you have to continue to change, because it is changing. So whether it's a complete, we're going to go from serving Mexican food to Chinese food, okay, maybe, but we're ready to completely change everything, or at least just adapt to, all right, people want this item on the menu, let's start adding this. Yeah. Or this is how takeout's going, we need to be better at takeout. So I think there's always something you need to look at too.
One of the biggest trends right now is fusion.
Yeah.
Biggest trend right now is fusion. The mix of all, two different heritages together, making dishes. That's the biggest thing going on in the restaurant world right now. So, that's something to think about, And you got to know what's going on, right? You got to, keep up with the times, know what the newest plating style is. Yeah. These matter. You don't want to go into a restaurant and see something, from 1980s, a wedge salad.
They're coming back.
Yeah, they are making a comeback.
They already left.
I think they're getting bored.
But some people left them on the whole time.
I've seen them recently. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? But you want something that's modern. You just got to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
Be involved in everything that's happening.
Well, exactly, and I think really looking at how do we make sure we have a good product? How do we make sure that we're evaluating it every week and listening to the feedback, good or bad? Because I think the common denominator in at least the three we've talked to so far is not avoiding it. Right? Not just not either being stubborn, like Ross, like, well, people are going to come to these games. I don't care that it's 100 degrees, right? But listening to the feedback, adapting, pivoting to the feedback, and not being afraid to look at the problem. Because at the end of the day, your business or sports, it's a math equation, right? You still need the dollars of your fans. You still need the dollars of your customers. You have to make sure the margin is there and really to see that it's going to be successful. Like, what does success look like? And I would say, going back to the Marley example, just because that's the one I know the best, is what was their view of success? Did they even really have one? Or was it just kind of like throw stuff out and see what works? But I think what you see between that and, I wouldn't say like the Yankees, because that's an unfair comparison, but, an organization that is very successful is that they have a clear definition of success. They know what they're driving to, and they're, unrelenting in getting there. Like, they will get to that success. Instead, some of these others don't have that view.
For example, for that would be, I think we both hate this, but the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
They're just always there.
Yeah.
They're always driving to be the best.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, they wind up winning the division almost every year. And that's dedication. That's keeping up with the times, knowing what moves to make, when to make them.
Yeah.
Well,
and also providing a product that very much represents their area. Brands itself as part of Atlanta, part of the community.
Yeah, they do it great.
Franchise players always. I mean, they really seem to know exactly what works in that market.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another team we're probably not going to like to bring up, but maybe better than anybody did, is the Lakers.
Don't say.
I mean, Dr. Bus, when he bought the Lakers, I think
yeah.
late 70s, right when Magic came on,
Yeah.
right? They're doing the whole documentary on HBO,
Great
anytime now,
Yeah.
and basically showing that basketball wasn't going to be the moneymaker, but he had an arena that he could do other things with, and he brought other sports to it, and he made it a show. He made it the biggest night. He was in LA.
He started the Laker girls, right?
He started
That was him.
I knew Chris would know.
That brought people out for sure.
Well, they had an exclusive club there,
Yes,
a restaurant,
yeah.
and so all these things that he did to make it the place to be, because he was in LA, he knew he was in LA, and basketball wasn't going to solely drive his profits.
Which is such a great analogy to restaurant, because fundamentally some of the best in the hospitality world look at their restaurant as a kitchen with some decorations, right? That kitchen can do a lot of different things. So if you know that, hey, I'm just not getting the foot traffic here, there's no chance I'm going to get the foot traffic that makes this math equation work, then you need to really think about what else could I do in that kitchen. Whether it's catering events, it's local schools, it's nonprofit. I mean, there are ways to generate revenue from that kitchen. And we just have to make sure that we drive to that and don't just say, oh, well, no one's going to show up to the game or no one's going to show up to my business.
Basically, don't be a quitter.
Right.
Keep trying. There's plenty of options out there. You just keep trying, keep putting it out there. Something's going to stick for you.
Right. And that's the big thing about, thinking like a Shotmaker, thinking, why we started this podcast is to really remind you that we're looking forward, right? Yeah. So whether your history looks like the Browns and the Marlins, it doesn't matter, right? That it's gone. It doesn't matter. But what matters is, how do I drive myself to better cash flow and make sure that my business is sustainable? All right, so for more information on cash flow, because we really think that this is such an important element of everyone's business, please check out our website, thelarkergroup.com, for a free 30-minute session with Scott, where we will show you our daily cash flow tool that can and will make a difference in your business.